God has chosen her to bring Glenda, Daryl, and Devin home to him in heaven. Our family has met and talked with her. There are no bad feelings towards her. We totally forgive her. We will love Sienna as our new friend. Okay, guys, this is a really rough story. It's a tragedy that happened in northern Indiana last week, but there's also a beautiful side to this story. A lot of times when there's an accident, when people are killed, when Amish are killed, Amish children are killed, we want to point the fingers and decide who's at fault, oftentimes based on previous experience. It's not always the case that what we may assume at first is the reality. Okay, I'm going to explain what I mean about that in a second. But what happened, if you haven't heard already? Last week, and this would have been April 10th, we got some really bad news out of the Napanee, Indiana Amish community. This is northern Indiana. This is from WNDU. The Marshall County coroner says the 3 kids who were killed in a crash this morning involving a car and an Amish buggy were all siblings from Bremen. They've been identified as 13-year-old Glenda Jo Yoder, 10-year-old Daryl Yoder, and 9-year-old Devin Yoder. The crash happened just after 8 a.m. Children were on the way to school. Police say a Mercedes-Benz GLA, that's a type of SUV, was heading south on Fur when it hit the back of the buggy, causing 3 children who were in the buggy to be ejected. The coroner says they all died at the scene. So, incredibly tragic. One point here, guys, one quick thing right off the bat. This report describes this as a car hitting a buggy. Now, the children were not in a buggy per se, as you might think about it. They were in what's called a pony cart, and this is a much smaller wagon, basically horse-drawn wagon, which is designed for a little pony, and is something quite common in Amish communities, in certain Amish communities, especially some of the more progressive Amish communities. Spent a lot of time in this community, this northern Indiana. I used to see these a lot, and it's something that children, sometimes quite young children, take out on the road for short distances, or maybe just ride around in their barnyard sometimes. Children will use these to go to school, and that's what they were driving. That's actually kind of relevant to this story, and I'll get to that in a second. When this originally happened too, I speculated, I wondered, this is an area, it's not like Holmes County, Ohio, Lancaster County. Some of these other communities are very hilly, have a lot of curves, blind curves and things. This is a much more flat area, tend to have these grid roads, which are like mile-long, straight, right angle roads. One is you have usually good visibility here. Now, that doesn't mean you have perfect visibility everywhere. That doesn't mean there aren't curves, obstacles, hills of sorts, here and there. So when these accidents happen, you often wonder, is it speed? Was someone not paying attention? Were they on their phone? Was there drugs or alcohol involved? Those are the kind of questions you have when you see these accidents. Because a lot of times in the past, that's been the case. I think I did a video like about a month ago on one where the guy who, thank God no one was killed in that, but he hit also another, I think, cart with 6 Amish children and apparently had substances in his system too. But there have been fatal accidents with that scenario as well. So you wonder about those things, okay? When this came out, there was a lot of speculation online, on Facebook, different places. Who was this? We started to understand this was actually a 17-year-old teenager. It was actually a teenage girl that was the driver. So that was the tragedy that happened just less than a week ago as I'm recording this. Now, we just had an update to the story a few days ago, which adds a good bit more insight of what actually happened, and also the response of the Amish family, the parents, Kevin and Inez Yoder, and their remaining children, towards the driver in this case. Okay, I'm going to explain their remarkable response. So it turns out, and this has been made public by the girl's mother, it turns out the driver of the vehicle was a 17-year-old girl named Sienna O'Connor. The girl's mother, Tracy Coleman, put out a statement on Facebook shortly after the accident happened, explaining what happened. Now, to get right to the point here, speed, distraction, substances, was any of that going on? Well, she addresses that. Tracy Coleman writes, she turned her phone over to prove she wasn't texting. We relinquished the black box from her car to show she wasn't speeding, and she did a toxicology test to show there were no drugs or alcohol in her system. So that's her account, and I don't think we have any reason to doubt that. It's not a police, account, but that is what she's put out there. Explaining what happened in the accident, she simply writes, pony carts are smaller than buggies, and due to a small hill and valley, she simply did not see them until it was too late. Okay, so that's kind of the reality here. The pony carts they do not have the high profile of a traditional Amish buggy where you have the very tall kind of black box. They're open. They're sitting much lower to the ground. They kind of have these little wheels, okay, tires or whatever on them. Not the big buggy wheels that are, give you a lot of elevation. So, for that reason, some Amish pony carts, like you can see in this photo here, they're going to have like a pole with an orange safety flag attached to them. This is not the children involved. This is another community in another state. So based on Tracy Coleman, the mother's account, it wasn't speeding, texting, or substances in her system. Visibility was the issue here. And like I said, even though these roads can appear straight, you can have little jogs and dips in the road that can create a visibility issue. And now she did write a long statement on Facebook. I'm going to share a few more excerpts of that. First of all, and this is not going to surprise some of you, but Tracy Coleman writes that the Yoders have forgiven her daughter. And even more than that. And if you know Amish culture, if you know Amish traditional beliefs and typical responses when tragedies happen like this, that is a pretty common response. Now, the most obvious one that people are going to think of that comes to mind is the 2006 Nickel Mine school shooting in Pennsylvania, where the families came out and extended forgiveness to the killer's family. The killer was deceased at that point, but of the killer as well, within, I believe, about 48 hours or less of the actual killings. Five Amish girls were killed in that attack, along with 5 injured. So you can see how powerful that example was. And that's not the only instance. I mean, that's happened on smaller or lower profile scales over the years, even well predating that incident. There was an incident in Indiana where boys were out like doing pranks, and they were actually throwing rocks or bricks or objects at Amish buggies as kind of like this is in like the 70s. So I guess there wasn't as much to keep people occupied then. But what happened was that a baby that was in a buggy was struck by one of these objects and was killed. And there was forgiveness that came out of that towards the boys. In fact, I think they even, at least 1 or 2 of them had formed a friendship or relationship with the family. So again, the point is it's not uncommon. So back to this story, the Yoders. Tracy Coleman writes, "My daughter is shattered as well as the beautiful Yoder family. This beautiful family invited my daughter into their home, hugged her, told her they love her, told her that they're so sorry this happened to her and they forgive her." I mean, can you imagine that, by the way? I mean, can you imagine that? 48 hours after 3 of your children are killed, to be able to do that. Let's see more on why. They believe it was a freak accident and do not hold her responsible for this tragedy. And they gave Sienna Glenda's Bible to help her heal. Glenda was the oldest child that was killed in the accident, 13-year-old Glenda. Not only that, the Yoders actually also posted notes asking people to stop the hate towards her daughter. And this was posted, I believe, in the Parks. The note reads, "Let's pray for Sienna O'Connor and stop the hate mail." I guess they're referring to probably a lot of the comments online. "Our family has met and talked with her. There are no bad feelings towards her. God has chosen her to bring Glenda, Daryl, and Devin home to him in heaven." So that right there reflects an aspect of Amish belief. God has chosen her to bring our children home to him in heaven. Kind of amazing. Continuing, "We will love Sienna as our new friend." It's just so powerful when you read that. I mean, you almost get emotional. "God is love. Pray for her and pass this along. Love Dad, Kevin, and Inez, the mom. And then the siblings, surviving siblings, Myron, Marlon, Galen, Carlin, and Kaylin Yoder." The mother writes further what the family did with this note or these notes. "They were concerned enough to go to the Bremen Parks and post notes asking to please stop the hate. They lost 3 children, and before they even buried them, they're doing their best, trying to protect Sienna from evil. We all have a lot we could learn from the Amish. God love the Yoders." And guys, it actually doesn't stop there. There was another note that was posted at the children's funeral, giving their view and their feelings on what happened. "At 2 p.m. April 10th, 2025, Sienna and family members came to the home of Kevin and Inez Yoder, parents of Glenda, Daryl, and Devin, who died yesterday in the pony car accident. This is just a day later. We do not hold Sienna at fault and believe she was only a tool in God's hands to bring these children home to Jesus. We totally forgive her and ask all others to do the same. Let's pray for her, and we ask for your prayers as well. Though the parting is hard, we believe they are safe in the arms of Jesus." The parents, Kevin and Inez Yoder, and family. How powerful is that? Tracy shared one more thing. It was actually a text message that was basically from, I guess, an intermediary, a person who knew the Yoders, was texting her, basically saying the family, they're asking if the family would come out to the home. Like I said, wanted to meet Sienna, show her forgiveness. In the message, it says they hope by doing this, she can forgive herself. This is out of true love. And guys, this is not unusual. This is not some weird family. It's not some weird Amish family or out of the norm Amish family. I'm not saying like every Amish family in the world would have this, how would I say? It's not easy, but like quick or, I don't know, heartfelt or rapid of a response in this way. But this is what the Amish believe. They believe in forgiveness. I mean, this is really well documented. There's a book called Amish Grace, Donald Crable, Stephen Nolt, David Weaver Zerker, that was written about the nickel mine school shooting tragedy, which goes into this quite deeply in the ways Amish think about forgiveness. One important thing, though, this doesn't mean it's easy for the Amish families. I mean, obviously, they face a huge loss. There's going to be a lot of tears still to come. They may struggle with some aspects of it, but you can just see how the fact that they're responding in such a spirit of love. I just can't imagine how hard it would be to do that if someone was, even if it's a total accident, but if someone was driving and the accident they caused 3 of your closest loved ones to lose their lives, children, it would be really extremely difficult, I think, if I'm being honest, for myself, and I imagine for a lot of other people, to be able to get to be in that place or get to that place. Maybe that's something I need to work on, but I'm just being honest. But again, for the Amish, it's not an unusual thing. It's just another powerful example of Amish beliefs about forgiveness, about God, about heaven. In a nutshell, that's what happened. I don't know if there's going to be a further police investigation, more details to come out. We are going on, granted, on the driver, Sienna's mother's statement, but I don't have any reason to want to doubt her here. Also, especially when I see the response of the Amish family in this case. They spoke directly to the girl, regardless of how the accident happened. This poor girl's going to have a big burden on her for a long time. And again, we still need to get a full investigation. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But taking this at face value, I think the Amish have given a good example of grace here. If you came across this story, I hope you keep that in mind. If there is a follow-up to this story, I'm gonna cover it. But that's where things stand right now. Some people have been criticizing the fact that the Amish children were out in a pony cart. I think that's a separate discussion as well. I don't think that's something we want to put on these parents. That's something that's common in their culture, that they accept, that they do. The fact of the matter is the Amish live in the way they do, and they're going to have horses and buggies on the road. They're going to be children walking on the road, riding bicycles, scooters, and so forth. That's part of their culture. You see that in hundreds of Amish communities across the country. In a lot of places, they take precautions, and the children even wear brightly colored orange vests for visibility. I mean, Amish culture is not going to do a 180 and completely change the way they live. I think there is some room for discussion on that, but it's also about how to come to a place where we can maximize safety while respecting cultural differences, but also understanding that accidents are going to happen no matter what steps are taken. Just like accidents happen between cars with no Amish involved that are fatal every day, with thousands of people dying every year in the US in just motor vehicle on motor vehicle accidents. So guys, thanks for watching. If you pray, keep these families in your prayers. A tragedy, but there's also, like I said at the beginning, a beautiful side to it, inspiring side to it. There's still a lot of pain ahead for these families, but the Yoders came to this in a spirit of love, and that's very powerful. So thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you next time.